This is the 3 a.m. DUI series, video 2. My name is Andrew Wheeler. I am a DUI defense attorney located in Southwest Washington. And what I want to talk to you about right now is, hopefully, other than watching the introductory video, this is the first video that you look at. Because depending on when you're watching this video, this may be the most important video in this series. What I experienced over the last 12 years, in particular at trial, is that a great deal of credibility is gained by time. And what do I mean by that? I mean by putting my client on the stand and having them testify. Very often a prosecutor will say, well gosh, this is 4 months later or 5 months later. How are you remembering these details? How are these points coming up? And to juxtapose that, when the prosecutor puts the police officer on the stand, the prosecutor is going to talk about how the officer wrote what they call a very contemporaneous report. That the report was written within a few hours of the incident. And so the design on this video is in particular to push back against that, the ability for the state to do that. And it's going to help you gather some important evidence in your case. We're going to do this in 3 phases. And basically I like to think of them as preserving, memorializing, and documenting. Preservation is extremely important. One of the things that you're going to hear if you take your DUI case to trial is that alcohol is what we call transitory evidence, meaning the alcohol level's going up or it's going down, but it's certainly not staying the same. And the same thing is true as to our physical appearance following the incident. It may be changing over time, but we want to show that. Every police report that I've looked at in the last 12 years, just under 1,500 cases, there's been some statement about my client's eyes. Usually the eyes are watery and bloodshot. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to take your phone, you're going to turn on the record function on your phone. If you have somebody else with you, they can record you, or if you are standing near a mirror, you can look in the mirror. The first thing that we want to do is we want to get a good shot of what our eyes look like. That means you're going to get, I'm going to pretend my camera's the mirror, you may get uncomfortably close to the mirror and get a good shot of what your eyes actually look like. Are they red, watery, and bloodshot? The next thing you're going to do is, continuing to record yourself, you're going to speak. One of the things that we're going to talk about when we go to trial in a case is that the officers very seldom have ever heard you speak before. They do not know your normal cadence or diction. Yet they're going to say in most police reports that your speech was slurred. Now the examples that I like to use in terms of what my clients are going to be saying on these videos are sort of the things you may have been saying to the police officer. Officer, I'm coming from a friend's house. I've had 3 beers over the last 2 hours. You don't want to over-enunciate, but you certainly want to document how your normal speech sounds, the spacing of your words, and we want to document that your speech is indeed not slurred. The next thing that we're going to hear about when we're looking at a police report is very often about our client's dexterity. And that is sort of how they're able to retrieve and pick up documents. And there's a very simple exercise that we can do to demonstrate dexterity. Again, I'm going to be using my hand, and I'm going to be counting while touching my fingers. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. The field sobriety tests are called divided attention tests, and that's a way we can divide our attention. Certainly we're counting, we're touching our fingers, we're doing them in order, and what we're doing is we're showing that good dexterity. We're showing that ability to manipulate and handle documents. So these 3 steps, filming our eyes, getting a sense of our speech, and certainly getting a sense of our finger coordination is extremely important. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about our recollections of the incident. What happened? What do we recall? And again, the sense here is we are doing a contemporaneous statement. As we talked about before, the police officer is going to gain a huge deal of credibility by doing their statement so early in time. We're going to gain that same credibility because our statement is just a few minutes probably after we've been released. Lastly, we want to demonstrate some coordination. This is going to be something that we're not going to do particularly in this video, but we may take some heel-to-toe steps to show our balance. We may stand on 1 foot to show our ability to do what we call the one-legged stand. Anything we can do, again, to push back in particular against the statements of a lack of coordination or a lack of balance, again, is extremely important to us. So again, the first thing, important thing we can do with our phone moments after release is to preserve. The next thing that we want to be able to do after we've preserved is we want to memorialize. Now, preservation is a lot about my client, the driver. It's what they look like, how they're speaking, things like that. Memorialize is about other people, and in particular, if you had passengers with you. Now, we can memorialize in several ways. If the passengers come over to your house and you want to videotape their statements, wonderful. The other thing we can all do is get on our phone and record a statement with the passenger. So what sort of things do we want to be talking about when we're memorializing our passengers' statements? Well, first, what did the passenger see? Now, certainly the passenger is going to have been riding in the vehicle. What kind of driving was he or she experiencing? The other thing that we want to talk about is where is the passenger specifically in the vehicle? Anyone who's ridden in the front seat knows the vantage point of the road is different than a person that may be in the back seat. So, where was the passenger? What are they seeing in terms of the driving? Next, if you did perform the voluntary field sobriety tests, was your passenger able to see your performance on those tests? Did they see how you were balancing, how you were walking? Certainly they're also going to have heard some of the interaction you had with the police officer. So what do they recall about that? The last consideration I think that's important when it comes to the passenger is that the passenger has known you generally for a long time. We usually don't have strangers riding in our cars. Because of that, that passenger may have seen you impaired by alcohol before. And what we want to do is to juxtapose, fancy word, juxtapose their sense of what you look like when you are impaired by alcohol and how you look this particular evening. You know, have they seen you slur your speech before or have balance or coordination issues? And then we will juxtapose with what happened this evening. Did they see those same balance and coordination issues before they got into the vehicle with you? Would they have ridden in a vehicle with you if they believed your ability to drive was impaired? Those are all important steps that we're going to take when it comes to the memorialization phase. So we've preserved. In that we have gotten what our own physical being looks like, how we're talking, walking, moving, what our eyes look like. We've memorialized. We've spoken to the folks that may have been in the vehicle with us about their perceptions of the driving, the officer contact, their recollections about the field sobriety tests, and finally, their perception of your overall impairment. The third stage is to document. Now, in the state of Washington, documentation is a little bit more tricky, because we have what's called Haley's Law. And Haley's Law requires law enforcement to tow your vehicle, meaning the first recontact you're going to have with your vehicle is usually 12 hours later. But again, we still want to have our cell phone with us. Because what we want to do in particular is we want to eliminate the variables, the different reasons that an officer can pull you over. Meaning what? Meaning that when you get your vehicle back, I want to be able to see that the headlights are working properly. Stand in front of your vehicle and take a short video. I want to see that the signals are able to work. I want to eliminate as many variables as possible as that officer may have tied to his or her reason to contact you. It was not a headlight out, it was not a tail light out, it was not a license plate light or a failure to signal. Documentation is extremely important because, again, while we talked about how evidence is transitory, certainly our vehicle condition can be transitory. Oftentimes we have prosecutors saying, well, how do we know your client didn't fix his or her car? And the important thing is that we have the video that's going to show that as soon as they went to the tow company and picked that vehicle up, the signals are working, the headlights are working, the tail lights are functional, and again, if it's a license plate light situation, which we see from time to time, the license plate light's on. I hope you understand the importance of preservation, memorialization, and documentation. These are all things that cannot be, unfortunately, reconstructed later. So again, this is our video that's called 3 a.m. If you're watching this video at 3 a.m., I would suggest that you proactively go through doing each one of these steps. Not everyone's going to have passengers, but everyone is going to be able to memorialize or to preserve what they look like. If they do have passengers, to memorialize those statements, and certainly when you retrieve your vehicle 12 hours later, to document the vehicle's condition. Now, the last thing I want to just very briefly touch on, we've preserved, we've memorialized, we've documented, is there's other variables that you may think is important. What was the condition of the road? What was the weather outside? Those sort of things. Those are again things that we can go out and document and preserve again using our phones, using our video devices. Any attorney that you are working with is going to be excited and happy to have this sort of information. The attorney may decide to use it, they may decide not to use it, but the important thing that you're doing is you're providing your attorney options for how to defend you, and you're taking your best step forward to hopefully avoid a DUI. If you have any future questions or concerns regarding this video, or feel free to give me a call a little earlier or later this morning, I'd be happy to help out. Thank you.